Excellent, I've got it all out. No one has to lick the bowl for me today. Hold that up. You might see a bit of a dark ring halfway down. We do get a little bit of slag in there. It's sand from the table, dirt from our hands, and that forms as a dark ring you'll see halfway down there. It just clings to the side as we pour the gold out. Now, of course, the job's a lot easier today. We don't have a coal or coke fire furnace. When you had one of them, you usually had a tradesman's assistant. That's what they called him. He was a 14 or 15-year-old lad. He started work about 5 o'clock in the morning, lit the furnace up, shoveled in heaps of coal and coke, and then stood there for 2.5 hours pumping on a huge set of bellows, like the blacksmiths used, forcing air into that furnace to get it up to 1150 degrees. So, a bit easier today. We have an induction furnace, powered by steam-induced electrons running rapidly through wires. What's that, youngsters? Huh? Steam-induced electrons travelling rapidly through wires. Electricity. Remember it might come in handy one day. Because we have electricity, we can overheat the gold by about 80 degrees past its melting point so we can pour it slowly and safely. Even though we do that, it doesn't take long to solidify, so some of the heat's passed through the bottom into the sand. Now, some of you lads look like you're definitely from bushranging ancestry. If you're thinking those sorts of thoughts, wouldn't want to put that in your pocket just yet. Now, gold's a pretty marvellous material. It's fascinated mankind for about as long as mankind could be fascinated by anything, really. It does have some really interesting characteristics. It doesn't corrode or oxidise. In other words, it doesn't tarnish. The gold you find out in the bush is exactly the same colour as someone's wedding ring. It might get pounded around by stones and rocks in the creeks. It might have dints in it because it's pretty soft material, but it has that lustre, that colour. I'm going gold panning tomorrow for a couple of days with a few mates camping out in the bush, and when you see a pea-sized or bean-sized piece of gold in your pan, your heart skips a beat. You know straight away that it's not a bit of glowing stone or rock. You know it's gold. It's definitely gold. Something about it. Because it's soft and malleable, it can be worked into rings and chains quite readily, and it does accept being mixed with other metals like nickel and copper and platinum. And that makes those bits of jewellery last longer. They don't wear out so quick because gold is soft. But the characteristic I like to emphasise is its density. Its molecular structure is very tightly packed. This weighs the same as one of these bricks down here. This weighs the same as 6 tubs or 6 packets of butter. Picture that stacked in my left hand. It's a fairly big stack compared to the size of this. And compared to lead, well, lead's a heavy metal. But if this was made of lead, instead of being 100 ounces or 3 kilograms, it would only be 60 ounces or 1.8 kilograms. So gold is nearly twice as heavy as lead. That's why gold panning works. You sweep the heavy gold to the bottom of the pan, shake it with lots of water, keep getting rid of the stones and sand, end up with gold only in the bottom of your pan. Now, because this is so dense, it holds heat, I'd actually have to waffle on for 2.25 hours before I could pick this up with my bare hand, because it's not touching something cold to cool it down. That's why we've got the water. Now, are any of these smelly young urchins having a birthday today? Oh, I'll choose a volunteer myself then. Grams. It is now 99.9% pure, or 24 karat gold, and it is worth just over $95,000. You were that close. So, you are 95,000 good reasons we don't pass it around. If you had been here about 6 weeks ago, this was worth $107,000. Last week it went down to $91,000. Earlier this year it was only worth $81,000. We can't keep up. Actually, yesterday and today, I think, are the first 2 days in a row we've had for a month or so where it's been worth the same amount 2 days in a row. So who knows where it's going to end up by the end of this year. It does have to go back into the safe. If I've given anybody gold fever, come and have a look through our shop. We have local Ballarat gold nuggets from $5 to $30. Some bigger ones from Western Australia. Some Ballarat jewellery in between. But in 15 minutes time, don't miss the soldiers. You'll hear them banging a drum as they march around the diggings at 1:30, and they fire off their guns up near the boilers there on the corner. Put your fingers in your ears. Do not be proud. You will regret it if you don't put your fingers in your ears unless you're standing way up on the hill towards the candle makers. They are very loud guns.